What's up, everyone? Hardcore here. I know it's been a while that we haven't made a video, but life happened. But some patches went by that we didn't really talk much about. And the latest patch has been weird ever since I read it. And the fact that it kinda stirred some talks between the forums and people playing. And I saw that it was kind of ridiculous, so I wanted to talk about it. And of course, joining me here is Kaiser with Jeff. Say hi, guys. Say hello. It's been a while.
Hello.
Hello.
So yeah, speaking of the patch 7.3, and the fact that people didn't like it is because apparently they didn't like the glam and how it looks. It was in the dungeon, the Meso terminal, I think.
Yeah. So the
Yes.
Meso terminal or Meso has some outfits based on historical outfits from Spain, and people have a lot of them have been kind of just on the usual of, oh, the outfits aren't that good, they're ugly, one or two pieces are good. Some people, though, really latch on and gravitate towards making a big fuss over stuff. And for the people that it's like, oh, this outfit isn't good looking, it's not that great, I don't like it, those people, the Square has to make so many outfits. There's bound to be outfits you're not gonna like. Yes, you can voice your disgust for them, but just remember, the people making the game have to sit there and make countless outfits.
Yep.
Sometimes they gotta make outfits based on what they've already made, and people get mad over it because, oh, they're just reusing assets. I would love it if the assets had a different coloring to them when you dye them. So with one, it's more of a matte finish. The other's it's a gloss finish.
Yeah.
That's just me nitpicking on the outfits. But realistically, there's so many outfits in the game. And unlike in past games like World of Warcraft, where the game got better and you had outfits from vanilla mixed with outfits from Cataclysm, and the render of the outfits from vanilla were just very, very bad compared to what was current, or even, further beyond from anything. And so you try to mix and match, and you can really tell in those games where the old is, because it doesn't have the quality that the new stuff. And in 14, they're trying to keep it all together, but there is some outfits from A Realm Reborn that you can just tell are a little on the less. Yeah. Well, they have a less resolution to them because of the spaghetti code that they've been holding on to for years.
Yeah.
But some people have really taken to, back to the Meso Terminal outfits, they've really latched on to, what in the Spanish colonist is going on here? Where they are latching on to these outfits were used during a time of, conquest of other countries. And it's like, that's any outfit you look at from history was used for war and conquest at some point, or was picked up from another country. Ties, for example, that we wear today were based around, I believe, the French picking up Afghans from from people from, like, what was it, Poland, or maybe even Africa. They had gotten some mercenaries. The prince or king liked the Afghans that they were wearing, and the Afghan has just turned into the tie.
I mean, I don't see anything
happens
wrong
in
with
history. Yeah. No, it's
if it
not that there's
represents a
anything
certain...
particularly wrong with it.
Yeah.
But what do you think, Sigmo, being the history buff?
No. What do you think? I mean, you saw how they look, right?
I think the whole... Yeah, it's based off of, like, an alternate form of what you would see, like, a Spanish conquistador will wear. I mean, but if you think about it, this whole entire DLC in itself... Yeah, at least for some of them. I mean, because if you think about it, there's strong, like, Spaniard ties and, like, you know, southeastern, like, influence in armor design. I mean, but if you think about it, it's based off of a fantasy game, first and foremost. And the thing is that in this DLC, there's so many different walks of life and culture that these outfits have gone to. At the beginning of 7.1, I mean, you're looking at more like traditional, what you see like Indian garb. You know, you have like a lot of almost like ponchos, like overcoats. You see a lot more of the sandals, bright, flashy colors. And then all of a sudden, you switch the tone and go into something different. And now all of a sudden, everybody has an issue with it. The crazy thing is that when you are trying to create content for everybody, there's that saying that, you know, you try to make something for everybody, you end up pleasing no one. And that's what seems like what happens. It seems like you can't create nothing in good fun and good spirit of just having new content, not being, you know, ideologists or, you know, being racist or whatever. People are so quick to just throw around terms without understanding what the real concept and understanding what these terms are. It's almost like throwing narcissists at everything or toxic in front of everything. Now everything is racist. Like, game is being racist. Like, there's nothing that's... Yeah, it's none of that. I mean, if you think about how everybody throws around these terms nowadays, and racist seems to be the hot topic. I mean, not to go into like anything completely off, but if you think about clothing in general, like this, you know, what was the Sydney Sweeney, you know, American Eagle ad, you know, because she's a white girl with blonde hair and blue eyes, and everybody's like, oh, it's racist, you know, it's you know, it's, you know, you're basically being Nazi propaganda. And it's like, well, no, it's not that, you know, because what, she's, you know, a cute blonde hair, blue-eyed white girl, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's racist. And it's like, no, it's not. People are so brainwashed and so cultured into thinking that everything is something that it's not, and then they virtue signal call out to that thing because they want something to happen because of what they're preaching about. And I think that's exactly what's happening here. Like, nobody was yelling racist when, you know, some of these other contents was coming out 10 years ago in these games, and all of a sudden you're just trying to be something fun, trying to have something nice, neat, different in the game. If they came out with the same content they came out with last year, people would be upset. If you came out with something different, people would be upset. It's just that now everybody just wants to jump on these trigger words and these, you know, hyper, you know, physiological terms that you see on, like, you know, armchair therapist couches. Everything has to be narcissistic and toxic and racist and all that stuff. And it's a fantasy game. It has nothing to do with that. The content developers are just creating something that's supposed to be new, that's supposed to add some kind of cultural difference in the game. I mean, but nobody's going to talk about the fact that there's dragons flying around that can talk and bird creatures that want to bring destruction to the game. But there's all these other different races and sexes. Yeah. And it's so funny when you try to put something in a box into a cultural spec or a scope when you're trying to force real world values into a video game where the video game clearly doesn't play by the same logic and rules of reality. You know, so the things that are considered bigoted or racist here has no scope in a world of a race, like as a fantasy game.
It is just a game. Like, you're not supposed to... Like, how is this offending? Honestly, I don't see any issue with it.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I always say this is that when you have nothing to fight against, you create an enemy to fight against, right? I mean, there's nothing really happening in the game. There's nothing that's I mean, people are just not liking the 7.0 version of they're not liking this DLC at all. First, it was a whole situation with Woke Lamont, and then it was now your character is being pushed from the warrior light, which is supposed to be the main, protagonist of the game.
The
All of a
side
sudden, they're
character.
pushed into a supporting role.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's everything that's about this DLC. Now, granted, is it perfect? No. Is there a lot of things that could have been fixed and worked on? Yes. But then again, it's not a perfect system. No matter what direction that they would have went, people were going to find something to criticize about the game. Now, criticizing anything is fair, but then when you're going out and just blatantly criticizing it just because of the fact that it has some kind of different merit or whatever, and then going out and virtue signaling on the internet to get an echo chamber of people to support you, to say that this game is racist based off of a set of it's crazy that the fact that we go out of our way as a culture to culture police every other thing. There was a social experiment about a white guy in downtown like Manhattan, and he's wearing like a Chinese outfit, right? Has like the stereotypical, the silk robes, the triangular shaped straw hat, and he's walking around in Manhattan, and he's asking people like in a street interview, like, how do you feel about me wearing this outfit? And everybody he's talked to on the street was like, you should be ashamed of yourself, because you're taking somebody else's culture and adopting it as your own. You're making it a mockery, all this other stuff, right? So everybody wanted him to change and cancel his appearance because it was a white guy in a Chinese outfit. But then the same guy wears the same outfit and goes to Chinatown in Manhattan, and the Chinese people are looking at him like, oh, this is nice, where'd you get your outfit? It's real silk, and they're impressed that the fact that somebody took it upon themselves to make themselves
it represents a culture that they like.
Exactly. That they went to an approach.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, guys.
It's like if you go to Japan and you wear a kimono and you wear it correctly, they'll be like, oh yes, thank you for, supporting our culture. You wear that anywhere else, like in America, oh, how dare you wear that? You are not Japanese, blah, blah, blah. But it's what you wore when you were in Japan.
Speaking of,
it's one of these things of,
let us actually show it up over here. So I was reading that and I was like, are you serious? Like, is this a thing? Okay, we have the first comment. It says, agree that this set is incredibly inappropriate. How is it inappropriate? I really don't understand. I might be stupid when it comes to this.
I don't either.
Adding gear inspired by the colonizers of many of the cultures drawn from 4 down trails, cruel and disrespectful. The gear set should be replaced with a palette swap or dyeable version of existing gear. But didn't we say like people are complaining of gears that already exist, just dyeable? And the other guy was like, it's extremely tone deaf and insulting to players.
Yeah, that's what I was mentioning beforehand. Like, even if you made dyeable options of gear that already exist, people would have just considered the developers as being lazy by not implementing something new. Mm-hmm. But besides putting something in the game that already exists and allows you to change the color for it. So it really is, as a developer, you really are damned if you do and damned if you don't. Right. You do something new, then you want to show some kind of appreciation to entitle your design off of. They're not stealing the design; they're basing their design off of. So they're like, okay, well, this is our template, this is what my inspiration is, this is what we're going for. It still has to suit some kind of purpose, some kind of facet for this game, and it's like, okay, well, because it fits this design of a culturally accurate real life thing, now everybody wants to jump on the bandwagon and say, well, it's culturally inappropriate. And it's like, how? Why? Because they decided to put it into a game. Number one, it's a fantasy game. It's not Risk. It's not, World War II simulation where where you're actually taking real armies of real people with real uniforms and throwing them up against one another. Like, it's not any of that. So how is this game being racist when there's no Spaniards in this game and there's no real life affiliation with Eastern or Southern, European culture to where you have it in this game? So are the developers racist because they use something? So is it them themselves racist, or is the game racist? Nobody can really understand or put an actual thing to it, because everybody just wants to just attack Final Fantasy XIV just for the sake of attacking it, because they have nothing else to attack at the moment.
Well, you also have to think it's a Japanese company, so for Sigma and I, as people who grew up in America, we learn things about our country or the countries around us very little, so we know about the whole conquistadors and everything, but that doesn't mean that people in Square Enix would, and even if they do have some people that work there, doesn't mean that they were in on the discussion or, and a lot of Japanese companies use things that are not used outside because of censorship or people's take on it, like this whole debacle over these outfits. But that's partially because either A, they just don't care, or B, they aren't looking for what is the problem. They're looking at things, trying to get ideas for what they can do, going, yes, I like this, let's go with this. And they don't look at the, back of it, like, what was this for? They just get like, oh, this was worn by Spanish soldiers or, Navy. So, yes, this would fit well into our game.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, that's what this is. It's a game.
Right.
It's crazy the fact that there's so many people that picks and chooses what they deem as racist and what isn't. What is seen as morally right and just.
Yep.
Yeah, because if you think about it, this is the Japanese developer, and the whole entire design of Paladin in itself is based off of a European knight, but nobody's going around and saying that's racist because they're appropriating the colonization of Western knights and Templars.
I wouldn't be offended if they add anything like European related stuff.
No, the thing is that there's people that understand. Number one, it's a game. Number two, you can have influences from any walk of art, because games in itself is a form of expression. It's a form of art.
Mm-hmm.
So you're allowed to depict your design and decision no matter what it is. You can take multiple different genres and blend them together. That's how you end up with whole new genres. Mm-hmm. That's how you end up with space cowboy stuff. That's how you end up with cyberpunk. That's how you end up with steampunk. All these different things is taking two different opposing genres and blending them together. Yep. So who's to say that you can't have fantasy with having armor of, I don't know, right. If you think about it, nobody's talking about the Earth streetwear that's just popularizing within the last
few patches,
15 years. What is it called on the markets, like tech, futuristic. Yeah, it's like futuristic, baggy, Japanese urban style. It's like a bunch of straps and belts, but everything is designed to be like samurai-ish, or Japanese, cavalrymen. All this stuff's based on that. But the fantasy, where you started off with archers, mages, and holy knights, and all of a sudden you have summoner jobs that can summon ancient beings, and all of a sudden we're in a land where technically you have servers holding people's memories. But the thing is that you can do all this different stuff to improve the game, and then at the end of the day, when you're putting things in to reward the players for the effort and hard work, then if that's ultimately getting attacked, the only thing that's going to end up happening is that you're going to start getting dungeons where the developers are just going to start dropping music rolls and accessories that has no physical attributes towards your character's design at all. Because if what happens is these people, I'm designing something, and people are constantly saying that it's bad, it's trash, it's racist, it's phobe, whatever you want to put on it. I'm eventually going to get to the point where I'm gonna be like, well, I'm just going to stop designing it. I'm just going to start putting our time and energy into the main storyline, cutscene, voice acting, put our money into that. We're not going to have our artists design anything.
Yeah,
So
but
eventually, you're not going to get any new armor at all. I mean, because you can end up with gear that is just going to be upgradable, and the only thing that you got is that gear. And if you wanted to make it look good or whatever, then you would end up having to go off of the stuff that's already implemented in the game. And then again, if that ends up happening, then you're just going to get people like, well, they're not even trying.
they're
They're not
gonna
even adding
look
anything
drab.
to the game.
They don't
You
look as fantasy-like, which I can understand. The last few patches, they were like
The
kind of
carrots-
weird looking, but that's just me though.
Yeah, the
I mean,
gear
I
itself
honestly think that there's a
is
lot of different
less
things that's in
than-
Final Fantasy XI that they haven't even used.
Yeah, the gear itself is less than what you can purchase from the vendors. It's what, like I think $7.35 or something close to that. So, you know, it's only for at best glamour for the most part. And again, it's on the
or
person
casual
to
players
decide
that
if
don't
they
do
want
in-game
to,
stuff.
or you just don't. They get to that point, they don't have enough to buy more, more tombstone gear.
Yeah, but
So-
that's besides the point.
think
The dungeon gear that
Yeah,
they've been like very specific about.
Yeah, I think the
it's
natural
ridiculous.
recourse. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think the natural recourse, which was the cause and effect that happened because of this, was well deserved. I think the people that didn't like it, that was putting their money towards the game, and let one thing that's outside of their control, that it was completely optional whether they got it or not, and they felt offended or they felt objectified or whatever the one of those two terms are. You know, if the shoe fit, wear it. But then their ultimate thing was to boycott and then leave the game. And I think people like that in the game probably shouldn't be representing the community. And because back in the day, Final Fantasy XIV, just like Final Fantasy XI, was one of the most friendliest groups of, it was one of the most well-liked communities. And because with any game that gets really, really big, you start accepting everybody. And when you start accepting everybody, you can't control the narrative.
Right.
And you can't control how they represent the community. I think within the last handful of years, the Final Fantasy XIV community has become hella toxic. You can't do anything without being misrepresented.
I would say.
Without people going out of their way.
I would say it's a hit and mix. Like, they're not very toxic, but it's like for the past few patches, they were like, I don't know. Maybe it's, I wouldn't say like, I think it's fear more because they don't want to get banned if they become more toxic. But I honestly don't know. But without going any further, so we don't take forever talking about it, I think it's ridiculous all in all. But I think the gear is fine. Me personally, I wouldn't wear it. It's meh for me. But all in all, it's kind of ridiculous. Like, if you don't like something, just don't wear it, I guess. Not the fact that the game deserves it. It's like, wait, we don't want to play. We're unsubscribing just because of a piece of gear. Come on now. But with all that being said, I think we're gonna end it here. And I'll see you guys more in other videos. I know I've been lacking lately, but we'll see where that goes. But I'll see you guys in the other video. Take care. Bye bye. See ya.